The energy chains around Dr. Sam Reed's wrists hummed with alien technology as he was pushed through the gleaming corridors of the council station. His captors, tall beings with scaled skin and eyes like polished obsidian, moved with military precision. Sam kept his breathing steady, observing everything around him with the same calm focus he used when studying wild animals back on Earth. The hallways stretched endlessly, filled with creatures Sam had only dreamed of seeing. Some walked on two legs like him, others floated or scuttled along the walls. Despite his situation, the scientist in him felt fascinated by this diversity of life forms. Each species moved differently, communicated differently, yet they all seemed to share one common trait when they looked at him: fear mixed with disgust. "Another human specimen," hissed one of his guards in the universal translator embedded in Sam's collar. "Look how it stares at us without shame." "They are all the same," replied the other guard. "Violent predators who destroy everything they touch. The council was wise to capture this one before it could spread its poison." Sam said nothing. He had learned long ago that arguing with frightened people, regardless of their species, rarely helped. Instead, he focused on memorizing the station's layout and studying the behavior patterns of the aliens around him. Most avoided eye contact, hurrying past with their heads down. Others watched him with the morbid curiosity usually reserved for dangerous zoo animals. They entered a vast circular chamber where dozens of alien representatives sat in tiered rows, creating an amphitheater effect. The architecture reminded Sam of old Earth courtrooms, but the technology was beyond anything humans had achieved. Holographic displays showed what appeared to be historical footage, scenes of human warfare, gladiator fights, and hunting expeditions. At the center of the chamber stood a figure Sam immediately recognized as someone important. The being was humanoid but taller, with skin that shifted between silver and blue. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," the figure announced, "we gather today to address the threat posed by the species known as humans. This creature before us represents a race that has spent its entire existence perfecting the art of violence and destruction." A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembled aliens. Sam noticed how they leaned away from him, as if his mere presence might contaminate them with human brutality. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he stood, a man who had devoted his life to protecting and understanding animals, being judged as a monster by beings who had apparently kidnapped him. The silver-blue leader gestured toward the holographic displays. "Observe their history. Wars that lasted decades. Sports where they force other beings to fight for entertainment. They hunt other species not for survival but for pleasure. They have turned violence into an art form." Chancellor Drack Speaks Truth called out a representative with insect-like features. "My species studied their broadcasts for cycles. Every transmission shows conflict, aggression, domination. They are a plague that must be contained." "Contained, yes," agreed another alien with tentacles instead of arms. "But first we must understand the full extent of their threat. I propose we test this specimen." Chancellor Drack nodded slowly. "The proving grounds await. If this human truly represents its species, it will reveal its nature when faced with mortal danger. We shall place it in the biodome with our most dangerous predators." The chamber erupted in excited chatter. Sam caught fragments of conversation through his translator. Bets being placed, predictions being made, species sharing stories of other creatures that had been tested in these proving grounds. None had survived. "The Crimson Mane Lions of Altair 7 currently reside in the testing facility," announced a reptilian representative. 3 adult specimens, each capable of tearing through reinforced hull plating. They have killed every previous test subject within minutes." "Perfect," Chancellor Drack replied. "If the human fights, we will see its true violent nature. If it runs, we will witness its cowardice. Either way, we will have our answer about this species." Sam finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. "May I ask what happens if I survive?" The question seemed to surprise the assembled aliens. Chancellor Drack's skin shifted to a deeper blue. "Impossible. No being has ever survived an encounter with the Crimson Manes. They are apex predators, evolved hunters with no natural enemies. But hypothetically," Sam pressed gently, "then perhaps we would reconsider our assessment of your species," the Chancellor replied after a long pause. "But such speculation is pointless. You will be dead within moments of entering their domain." The guards began leading Sam toward an exit, but he heard the betting continue behind him. The reptilian representative wagered the human would last 30 seconds. The insect-like being predicted 2 minutes of desperate fighting before the inevitable end. The tentacled alien placed odds on whether the human would scream. As they walked through more corridors, Sam noticed observation windows being prepared, viewing screens being activated. Word of the test was spreading quickly through the station. Aliens were gathering to witness what they believed would be a demonstration of human savagery followed by swift justice from the galaxy's most feared predators. The entrance to the proving grounds was a massive airlock, reinforced with energy fields and warning signs in multiple languages. Through the transparent barriers, Sam could see a sprawling biodome filled with alien vegetation and strange, crystalline formations that caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. "Any final words, human?" asked one of his guards with what might have been mockery. Sam looked through the barrier at the beautiful alien landscape beyond. Somewhere in there, 3 creatures waited. Beings that every species in the galaxy apparently feared. Creatures that had earned reputations as unstoppable killers. "Just one thing," Sam replied quietly. "In all your research about humans, did you ever study our wildlife rehabilitation programs? Our conservation efforts? The way we've learned to coexist with our own predators?" The guards exchanged glances. "More human trickery," one muttered. "We shall see," Sam said as the inner airlock began to open. "We shall see." The massive door slid apart with a soft hiss, revealing the alien world beyond. Sam stepped forward into whatever awaited him, carrying with him not weapons or aggressive intentions, but decades of experience reading animal behavior and a deep understanding that even the most dangerous predators were simply living beings trying to survive in their own way. Behind him, hundreds of alien eyes watched and waited for the violence they were certain would come. Warm, humid air filled Sam's lungs as he stepped fully into the biodome. The artificial atmosphere carried scents both familiar and alien, something like pine mixed with ozone and an underlying musk that spoke of large predators nearby. Above him, a simulated sun cast golden light through crystalline branches that chimed softly in the gentle breeze. The airlock sealed behind him with a definitive click, cutting off his last connection to the watching aliens. Sam stood completely still for several minutes, letting his eyes adjust to the lighting while his other senses mapped the environment. This wasn't just a testing ground, it was a carefully crafted ecosystem, complete with flowing water, varied terrain, and the complex interplay of plants and minerals that suggested someone truly understood habitat creation. A low rumble echoed from somewhere among the crystal trees. Not a growl of aggression, but something more like a lion's greeting call. Sam had heard similar sounds countless times during his years working with big cats in African reserves. The pitch and duration told him these were healthy animals, alert, but not immediately threatened. Through a gap in the strange foliage, Sam caught his first glimpse of the crimson mane lions. The name was perfectly chosen. Their manes did indeed shift between deep red and brilliant crimson, colors that seemed to move and flow like liquid fire. They were larger than Earth lions with broader shoulders and more muscular builds, but their basic body language was remarkably familiar. The largest male lay stretched across a flat stone platform, his massive head raised and ears forward as he studied this new arrival. A female rested nearby, occasionally flicking her tail, a sign of mild curiosity rather than agitation. The third lion, younger and smaller, sat upright with the alertness of an adolescent testing his place in the pride hierarchy. Instead of running or searching for weapons, Sam did something that would have seemed suicidal to any observer. He sat down. Right there, perhaps 50 feet from creatures that could cover that distance in seconds, he lowered himself to the ground and crossed his legs in a relaxed position. In the observation areas surrounding the dome, alien voices buzzed with confusion and anticipation. Betting had intensified when the human failed to immediately run or fight. Some spectators leaned forward in their seats, expecting the lions to interpret the sitting position as submission and attack accordingly. Sam closed his eyes briefly and began the breathing exercises he had learned during his early years working with dangerous animals. Slow, deep breaths that would keep his heart rate steady and prevent the release of fear pheromones that predators could detect from remarkable distances. When he opened his eyes again, He began a careful study of the lion's current state. The big male's ears were forward, curious, not aggressive. His tail lay still rather than twitching with hunting anticipation. Most importantly, his shoulders were relaxed. A lion preparing to attack would show tension through his entire body, muscles coiling like springs ready to unleash devastating power. The female had tilted her head slightly, studying Sam with what he recognized as intelligent assessment rather than predatory evaluation. Her posture remained loose, comfortable. She was treating him like an interesting puzzle rather than potential prey. The youngest lion showed the most animation, rising to his feet and taking several steps closer before settling down again. His movement pattern reminded Sam of a curious house cat investigating something new, cautious, but not fearful. After 20 minutes of patient observation, Sam made his first deliberate movement, slowly, telegraphing his intentions clearly. He removed his outer jacket. The motion caused all 3 lions to focus on him intently, but none showed signs of alarm. He folded the jacket carefully and placed it beside him, then removed his boots with the same deliberate care. These actions served multiple purposes. They made him appear smaller and less threatening, removed potential sources of unfamiliar scents from synthetic materials, and demonstrated that he was settling in for a long stay, rather than preparing for fight or flight. The watching aliens grew increasingly agitated. This wasn't following any script they had imagined. Some demanded the test be ended, certain the human was using some form of mind control. Others insisted they continue watching, fascinated despite themselves by behavior they couldn't understand. Sam began to hum quietly. Not a tune, just a low, steady sound that many Earth predators found calming. The vibration seemed to resonate slightly with the crystal formations around them, creating a subtle harmony that made the entire environment feel more peaceful. The big male lion's ears twitched at the sound. After several minutes of listening, he lowered his great head to rest on his paws while maintaining eye contact with Sam. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, neither submission nor dominance, but recognition of another intelligent being sharing his space. Encouraged by this response, Sam slowly reached into his pocket and withdrew a small package of trail mix, emergency rations he had been carrying when captured. The movement drew immediate attention from all 3 lions, but again, their body language suggested curiosity rather than threat assessment. Sam opened the package carefully, the crinkling sound causing the youngest lion to prick his ears forward with interest. Rather than eating the nuts and dried fruit himself, Sam scattered a small portion on the ground between himself and the lions, not close enough to suggest feeding, which could trigger problematic behaviors, but near enough to offer it as a gesture of goodwill. The female lion was the first to investigate. She rose gracefully and padded forward with the fluid motion that made big cats so mesmerizing to watch. Her approach was confident but not aggressive. She moved like someone accepting an invitation rather than stalking prey. She sniffed the scattered trail mix delicately, her wet nose investigating each piece with scientific thoroughness. After determining that the offerings posed no threat, she looked directly at Sam for several long moments. Her golden eyes held an intelligence that reminded him why ancient cultures had revered these creatures as symbols of wisdom and strength. Then, in a gesture that sent gasps of disbelief through the observation areas, she settled down less than 10 feet from Sam and began grooming herself with casual indifference. It was the ultimate statement of trust. No prey animal grooms itself in the presence of a perceived threat. The youngest lion, emboldened by the female's acceptance, crept closer to investigate the strange new additions to his territory. The big male remained on his platform, but Sam could see the tension leaving his massive frame as he too began to accept this odd creature's peaceful presence. As artificial sunset began to paint the dome in shades of amber and gold, Sam found himself surrounded by 3 of the galaxy's most feared predators. None showed any inclination toward violence. Instead, they had begun treating him like a somewhat interesting permanent fixture in their environment, worthy of occasional attention but not requiring constant vigilance. The watching aliens fell silent, struggling to process what they were witnessing. Their carefully constructed test was revealing something entirely unexpected about both humans and the nature of strength itself. Dawnlight filtered through the crystal canopy, as Sam woke to find the youngest lion sleeping barely 6 feet away from him. The creature's steady breathing and relaxed posture spoke of complete trust. No animal sleeps so peacefully near something it considers dangerous. Sam had spent the night propped against a smooth rock formation, dozing lightly while maintaining awareness of his surroundings. The female lion stirred first. Rising with the graceful stretch that seemed universal among cats, she looked directly at Sam, and he could swear he saw recognition in her golden eyes. Not just awareness of his presence, but genuine acknowledgement of him as an individual. She padded over to a crystal-clear stream that wound through their shared space, and Sam took this as an invitation to move as well. He stood slowly, joints protesting after a night on unfamiliar ground, and walked to a point downstream from the lioness. The watching aliens pressed closer to their viewing screens, certain that any movement would trigger the predatory response they had been waiting to witness. Instead, Sam simply cupped his hands and drank from the stream while the massive predator did the same barely 20 feet away. The water tasted faintly metallic but refreshing, with minerals that suggested the ecosystem's designers had paid attention to every detail. As Sam drank, he noticed something that made his trained eye narrow with concern. The female lion favored her left front paw slightly, placing less weight on it than seemed natural. When she finished drinking and began to move away, Sam saw the problem clearly. She walked with the subtle limp of an animal compensating for an injury, not recent but persistent. Something was wrong with that paw, and she had been dealing with it for some time. The big male had awakened and now watched Sam with the patient attention of a creature trying to solve an interesting puzzle. His mane caught the morning light like spun copper, and Sam could see the intelligence behind those ancient eyes. This was not just a predator, this was a thinking being, capable of judgment and decision-making far beyond simple instinct. Sam began to speak, not in words that the lions could understand, but in the universal language of tone and rhythm that transcended species barriers. His voice carried the same calm energy he had used with frightened animals throughout his career. Steady, reassuring, completely non-threatening. "Easy there. Beautiful," he said softly to the female, his words less important than their delivery. "Something's bothering that paw of yours, isn't it? Let's see what we can do about that." The alien observers exchanged confused glances. Several species represented in the viewing areas had no concept of vocal communication, used for comfort rather than dominance or territory marking. The idea that the human might be attempting to help rather than harm the lions simply didn't register in their understanding of predatory behavior. Sam reached slowly into another pocket and withdrew a small first aid kit. Basic supplies he carried during field work. The movement drew immediate attention from all three lions, but their body language remained curious rather than alarmed. They had spent enough time with him now to recognize his predictable, non-threatening movement patterns. The female lion watched with tilted head as Sam opened the kit and carefully laid out its contents on a flat stone. Antiseptic wipes, small bandages, tweezers, and other supplies that meant nothing to her but everything to someone trained in animal care. Moving with glacial slowness, Sam crept closer to the injured lioness. She could have killed him instantly if she chose. Her claws were longer than his fingers and her jaw could crush his skull with casual ease. Instead, she simply watched him approach with the patient attention of someone waiting to see what would happen next. When Sam was close enough to touch her, he stopped and extended his hand palm down, letting her catch his scent fully. She leaned forward and sniffed his fingers thoroughly, her wet nose tickling his skin. Then, in a gesture that sent shockwaves through the observation areas, she gently bumped his hand with her massive head, the same greeting cats had used with trusted humans for thousands of years. Permission granted. Sam carefully examined her injured paw, his gentle touch causing her to tense momentarily before relaxing again. Between the pads, he found what he had suspected, a crystalline thorn, probably from one of the dome's decorative plants, embedded deep enough to cause constant irritation, but not deep enough to be life-threatening. "There's your problem, girl," Sam murmured, maintaining his calm tone. "Let's get that out of there, shall we?" The extraction required patience and skill. The thorn had to be removed without breaking it or driving it deeper, and the lioness had to remain calm throughout the process. Sam worked with the focused concentration of a surgeon, occasionally pausing to let the big cat rest her paw when he sensed tension building. The big male had moved closer during the procedure, his massive presence looming over Sam's shoulder. Rather than feeling threatened, Sam felt oddly protected. The male's proximity seemed more like a guardian watching over a medical procedure than a predator waiting to strike. When the thorn finally came free, a wicked piece of crystal nearly 2 inches long, the female lion's relief was immediate and obvious. She placed her full weight on the paw for the first time since Sam had been observing her, then looked directly at him with what he could only interpret as gratitude. Sam cleaned the small wound carefully and applied a thin layer of antiseptic. The lioness held perfectly still throughout the treatment, as if she understood exactly what he was trying to accomplish. When he finished, she took several experimental steps, her normal, graceful gait fully restored. Then something happened that caused several alien observers to faint and others to demand an immediate end to the test. The massive lioness rubbed her head against Sam's shoulder in an unmistakable gesture of affection and thanks. The big male, apparently approving of the medical intervention, settled down beside Sam with a rumbling purr that resonated through the crystal formations. The youngest lion, not to be left out, approached from the other side and flopped down against Sam's back, with the casual trust of a domestic cat claiming its favorite human. Within minutes, Sam found himself surrounded by 3 enormous predators, all of whom seemed to consider him part of their pride. They groomed themselves peacefully in his presence, occasionally looking his way with expressions that seemed almost fond. In the observation areas, emergency meetings were being called. This wasn't supposed to happen. The test was meant to reveal human savagery, not human compassion. Several representatives demanded that Sam be removed immediately, certain that he was using some form of technological mind control. Others insisted the test continue, fascinated by behavior that challenged everything they thought they knew about both humans and predator dynamics. As the artificial sun climbed higher in the dome's sky, Sam sat peacefully among his new companions, absently scratching behind the big male's ears while the lioness cleaned her newly healed paw. The simple act of helping another living being had transformed him from intruder to family member in the space of an hour. The aliens watching struggled to understand what they were witnessing, but Sam knew exactly what had happened. He had spoken the one language that transcended all species barriers: kindness. News of the impossible human spread through the council station like wildfire. Beings from dozens of species abandoned their duties to crowd around the observation decks, witnessing something that challenged their fundamental understanding of predator behavior. Communication networks buzzed with updates, and soon representatives from distant sectors were arriving to see the phenomenon for themselves. Sam had no awareness of the growing audience. His attention was focused on the subtle dynamics of pride life playing out around him. The big male, whom Sam had begun thinking of as Atlas due to his impressive size and regal bearing, had claimed a spot in the shade where he could observe both Sam and the approaches to their territory. The female, Grace in Sam's mind because of her elegant movements, had returned to her earlier resting place but kept one eye always on their strange new pride member. The youngest lion, who reminded Sam of an overgrown kitten despite his formidable size, had apparently decided that Sam made an excellent pillow. Leo Sam couldn't help but smile at his own lack of creativity in naming, had sprawled across Sam's legs with the boneless relaxation that only cats could achieve. What the aliens found most disturbing was how the humans' presence had affected the entire ecosystem within the dome. Other creatures, previously kept at bay by the lion's territorial nature, had begun venturing closer to the peaceful gathering. A group of creatures that resembled crystalline deer grazed openly within sight of the pride, showing no fear of the apex predators who seemed more interested in napping than hunting. Dr. Yara Omenthi, a young xenobiologist from the Centauran delegation, pressed her face against the observation window with growing excitement. Her grandmother had been among the first to study Earth broadcasts, but Yara had always questioned the older generation's interpretation of human behavior. "Grandmother Kess," she whispered to the elderly Centauran beside her, "look at the harmony patterns. The bio-readings from the dome show decreased stress hormones across all species present. The human isn't dominating the environment, he's calming it." Grandmother Kess adjusted her optical enhancers, her ancient eyes struggling to process what she was seeing. "Impossible, child. Our studies clearly showed humans to be apex predators driven by violence and territorial aggression. But what if we misunderstood? Yara pressed. What if we only saw the exceptions rather than the rule? What if their capacity for violence exists alongside an even greater capacity for empathy? In the dome, Sam had begun fashioning simple tools from fallen crystal branches and smooth stones. The watching aliens assumed he was creating weapons, but his actions told a different story. He tied crystal fragments to flexible branches, creating what appeared to be toys, objects designed for play rather than harm. Leo was the first to investigate these creations. The young lion batted at a hanging crystal with obvious delight, his playful swipe sending rainbow reflections dancing across the dome walls. Soon Grace joined in, her injured paw now fully functional as she pounced on rolling stones with kitten-like enthusiasm. Even Atlas, despite his dignified bearing, couldn't resist occasionally swatting at the moving objects. The sight of the galaxy's most feared predators, playing like domestic cats sent murmurs of amazement through the observation areas, but it was Sam's next action that truly shattered alien preconceptions about human nature. Using his knowledge of animal behavior and available materials, he began constructing what could only be described as furniture, a more comfortable resting area for Grace, positioned to catch both morning sunlight and afternoon shade. He wove crystal fibers into a soft mat, created a raised platform for better drainage during the dome's simulated rain cycles, and even fashioned a scratching post from textured bark. He's improving their quality of life, breathed Dr. Omenthi. This isn't conquest or domination, it's environmental enrichment. Chancellor Drac had arrived to witness the spectacle personally, his silver-blue skin now showing stress patterns of deep purple. This must be some form of advanced psychological warfare, he declared. The human is obviously planning something. Planning what, exactly? Asked Ambassador Quirrell, whose insectoid species had originally pushed for the test. To make them more comfortable? To heal their injuries? To play with them? The Chancellor had no answer. By the third day, the dome had been transformed. Sam had created multiple play areas, improved resting spots, and even diverted part of the stream to create a better drinking pool. The lions followed him everywhere, not as subjects following a master, but as family members sharing their space with someone they trusted completely. Other species within the dome began approaching the peaceful zone around Sam and the lions. Creatures that had previously hidden in the deepest recesses of the habitat ventured into the open, drawn by the aura of safety that seemed to surround the human. A pack of six-legged hunters, previously known for their aggressive territorial behavior, settled down just outside the pride's immediate area. They showed no signs of the nervous energy that usually characterized their species, instead displaying the relaxed posture of animals who felt secure in their environment. Serpentine beings with venomous spines emerged from crystal caves to bask in the areas Sam had improved for solar exposure. Their presence would normally have sent every other species fleeing, but the pervasive calm seemed to extend even to natural enemies. It's unprecedented, reported Dr. Omenthi to an emergency council session. The human has created a neutral zone where natural predator-prey relationships have been temporarily suspended. Every species in the dome is exhibiting reduced stress indicators. How is this possible? Demanded a representative from the hegemony. No single being can alter the fundamental nature of an entire ecosystem. Unless, suggested Ambassador Quirrell thoughtfully, the human understands something about ecosystem management that we don't. What if they've developed beyond simple predator status into something more complex? Environmental harmonizers. The suggestion sent shockwaves through the assembled aliens. Species that had spent millennia viewing themselves as the galaxy's most advanced civilization suddenly faced the possibility that they had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of advancement itself. In the dome, Sam had no knowledge of these debates. He sat peacefully among his adopted pride, absently scratching Atlas behind the ears while Grace groomed her paw, and Leo chased light reflections across the crystal formations. Around them, creatures that should have been mortal enemies shared the same space in unprecedented harmony. The test designed to prove human savagery had, instead, revealed something far more profound: the power of choosing compassion over conflict, cooperation over conquest, and healing over harm. The aliens had been looking for evidence of humanity's capacity for destruction, but they had found instead proof of something even more dangerous to their preconceptions: humanity's capacity for creation. Emergency council sessions had been running continuously for 3 days, with representatives arriving from the furthest reaches of the galaxy to witness the human phenomenon firsthand. The Grand Assembly Chamber, usually reserved for major treaties and declarations of war, now buzzed with heated debates about the nature of intelligence, civilization, and what it truly meant to be an advanced species. Chancellor Drack stood before a massive holographic display showing real-time footage from the dome. Sam could be seen weaving plant fibers into a more comfortable sleeping area for Grace, while Atlas supervised the construction with the patient attention of a building inspector. Leo was attempting to help by bringing various crystal fragments, most of which were entirely unsuitable for the task, but which Sam accepted graciously nonetheless. "Esteemed representatives," the Chancellor began, his voice carrying notes of confusion rather than his usual commanding authority, "we must address what our xenopsychology teams are reporting. The human's behavior patterns suggest cognitive processes we did not account for in our original assessments." Dr. Helios, the Council's chief xenopsychologist, activated a complex data display showing brain scans, hormone levels, and behavioral analysis from multiple species. "The human exhibits simultaneous activation of threat assessment and nurturing response systems," he explained. "Most species show one or the other: fight, flight, or caregiving behaviors. This creature appears capable of evaluating danger while simultaneously planning protective actions for other beings." "Impossible," scoffed General Thex from the hegemony. "No species can maintain such contradictory neural states without severe psychological dysfunction." "And yet," Dr. Helios continued, "observe the stress indicators from all life forms in the dome. Across 17 different species, we see unprecedented decreases in cortisol analogs and increases in social bonding chemistry. The human isn't just coexisting with these creatures, he's actively improving their quality of life." Ambassador Quirrell leaned forward in her complex seating arrangement. "Our initial intelligence focused exclusively on human conflict behavior. We studied their wars, their competitive sports, their territorial disputes, but we ignored their conservation programs, their wildlife rehabilitation efforts, their capacity for interspecies cooperation. Because those behaviors seemed irrelevant to threat assessment," Chancellor Drack replied, "a species' capacity for violence determines their danger level to galactic civilization. Does it?" The question came from Dr. Yara Omenthi, whose grandmother had been instrumental in the original human threat assessment. The young xenobiologist rose from her seat with visible nervousness at addressing the full council. "With respect, Chancellor, we may have fundamentally misunderstood what makes a species dangerous." A murmur of disapproval rippled through the chamber, but Yara continued, "Every species represented here achieved spaceflight through technological advancement. But observe what the human has accomplished with primitive tools and behavioral modification. He has created harmony in an ecosystem designed to showcase predatory dominance." The holographic display shifted to show long-term monitoring data from other dome tests. Previous subjects had either been killed within hours or had managed to survive by finding hiding places and remaining motionless until extraction. None had attempted to interact with the predators, let alone improve their environment. "The human's approach suggests a completely different relationship with natural systems," Dr. Helios added. "Rather than viewing himself as separate from or superior to other life forms, he appears to see himself as part of an interconnected web. This could represent a form of ecological consciousness we've never encountered." In the dome, Sam had finished the sleeping platform and was now engaged in what appeared to be a game with all 3 lions. He had created a puzzle using crystal formations and hollow gourds, hiding treats inside compartments that required problem-solving to access. The lions attacked this challenge with obvious enjoyment, their natural intelligence engaged in nonviolent competition. General Thex snorted with dismissal. "Games and comfort items. How does this relate to their capacity for interstellar conquest?" "That's precisely the point," Yara replied with growing confidence. "What if their greatest strength isn't their willingness to fight, but their ability to choose not to fight? Every species here achieved dominance through superior firepower or tactical advantage. But this human has achieved something more significant. He's gained the voluntary cooperation of creatures, programmed by evolution to kill anything that enters their Territory. Chancellor Drac studied the display, showing Sam now resting peacefully, with his massive companions scattered around him like living furniture. You're suggesting that humans have evolved beyond predatory dominance into something else entirely? Environmental integration, suggested Ambassador Quirrell. The ability to insert themselves into existing ecosystems not as disruptors, but as stabilizing elements. It's theoretically possible but unprecedented in our experience. The debate was interrupted by an urgent communication from the dome's monitoring station. Council representatives, came the voice of the facility director. We have a situation requiring immediate attention. Additional predators are attempting to enter the humans' territory. The holographic display shifted to show the dome's entrance area, where a pack of razor-clawed hunters had appeared. These creatures were known for their pack intelligence and aggressive territorial behavior. In previous tests, their arrival had meant swift death for any existing inhabitants. The watching aliens leaned forward as the pack approached the area where Sam rested with the lions. According to every behavioral model, this should trigger a massive territorial conflict. The Crimson Manes should defend their space with lethal force, while the hunters should attempt to claim the prime territory through coordinated assault. Instead, something unprecedented occurred. Atlas rose to his feet and walked deliberately toward the approaching pack. But his posture showed none of the tension associated with territorial defense. His movements were confident but not threatening. His mane relaxed rather than bristled for combat. Sam also stood, positioning himself slightly behind Atlas but visible to the newcomers. He began speaking in the same calm tones he had used with the lions, extending his non-threatening presence to include these new arrivals. The lead hunter, a creature with intelligence gleaming in its compound eyes, paused at the edge of what should have been contested territory. Instead of attacking, it tilted its head in what unmistakably resembled curiosity. "Impossible," breathed General Thex. "Hunters don't negotiate. They attack or retreat." "Unless," said Dr. Omenthi quietly, "they recognize something in the human that transcends normal territorial behavior, something that makes them want to understand rather than destroy." The pack leader took several careful steps forward, its razor claws retracted in a gesture of non-aggression. Atlas maintained his position, but showed no signs of defensive preparation. Sam continued his calm verbal communication, treating the deadly pack as simply another group of beings deserving of respect and understanding. Within an hour, the hunters had settled into the expanded peaceful zone, their natural aggression somehow transformed into protective vigilance. The dome now hosted multiple apex predator species, coexisting in harmony around a single human who seemed to serve as a living bridge between natural enemies. The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. They were witnessing something that challenged the fundamental assumptions underlying galactic civilization. Proof that the ultimate evolutionary achievement might not be the ability to dominate others, but the wisdom to unite them. The seventh day dawned with Sam waking to find himself at the center of what could only be described as a cross-species commune. Atlas had claimed the high ground on his crystal platform, maintaining his role as the Pride's watchful guardian. Grace and Leo flanked Sam on either side, their warm bodies providing comfort during the dome's cooler artificial night cycles. The pack of hunters had arranged themselves in a protective semicircle, their natural vigilance now serving as early warning system for the entire group. But it wasn't just predators anymore. Over the past few days, herbivorous species had begun venturing closer to what the watching aliens had started calling the peace zone. Crystal deer grazed openly within sight of natural enemies who showed no inclination to hunt. Smaller creatures that normally lived in constant fear of both lions and hunters now foraged confidently, under the protection of an umbrella of calm that seemed to extend from Sam's presence. The monitoring equipment registered something the scientific teams had never seen before: an entire artificial ecosystem, where the natural order of predator and prey had been temporarily suspended, replaced by something resembling a cooperative community. Chancellor Drac materialized in the dome through a holographic projector, his image flickering slightly as it resolved into full clarity. Sam looked up from where he had been examining a small wound on one of the hunter's legs, his hand still gentle on the creature that could have torn him apart in seconds. "Human," the Chancellor began, then paused as if uncertain how to proceed. Dr. Sam Reed, according to our records. That's correct, Sam replied calmly, not moving away from the injured hunter. The creature remained perfectly still under his ministrations, its compound eyes focused on his face with what appeared to be trust. Though I suspect you didn't come here to discuss my credentials. Indeed. The Chancellor's projection moved closer, causing several of the animals to look up with mild interest before returning to their various activities. You have exceeded our expectations regarding this test. Sam applied a small bandage to the hunter's leg wound, earning what might have been a grateful chirp from the creature. It wasn't really a test, was it? You expected me to die quickly and violently, confirming your beliefs about human nature. The evidence seemed conclusive, Chancellor Drack admitted. Your species' broadcast showed nothing but conflict, competition, and conquest. Every analysis pointed to humans as a threat requiring containment or elimination. And now? Sam asked, settling back against Atlas's massive flank. The lion's purring created a deep harmonic that seemed to resonate through the crystal formations. Adding to the peaceful atmosphere, the Chancellor was quiet for several moments, his skin cycling through colors that suggested deep consideration. Now we face the possibility that our understanding of civilization itself may be fundamentally flawed. You have accomplished something our greatest minds considered impossible: the voluntary cooperation of natural enemies in a sustainable harmony. Around them, the diverse community continued their daily activities. Leo was playing with a group of smaller creatures, his natural predatory instincts redirected into gentle games of chase that never ended in capture. The pack hunters had organized themselves into teams for exploring the dome's various environments, sharing discoveries rather than competing for territory. It's not that complicated, Sam said simply. Every species here has basic needs: food, water, shelter, safety, social interaction. When those needs are met without artificial scarcity, competition becomes cooperation. But the natural order, the Chancellor began. The natural order includes adaptation, Sam interrupted gently. These creatures are all intelligent enough to recognize when fighting serves no purpose. They're choosing to coexist because coexistence benefits everyone. Dr. Yara Omenthi's voice joined the conversation as her projection appeared beside the Chancellor. Dr. Reed, our xenopsychology teams are struggling to classify the behavioral modifications you've induced. How did you accomplish this transformation? Sam scratched behind Grace's ears, earning a rumbling purr that harmonized with Atlas's deeper vibrations. I didn't transform anything. I simply provided an environment where their better natures could emerge. Every one of these creatures is capable of cooperation. They just needed to feel safe enough to try it. Safe. Chancellor Drack repeated the word as if it were foreign. Your presence creates safety for apex predators? My presence creates predictability, Sam corrected. They know I'm not a threat, not a competitor, and not prey. That frees them from the constant vigilance that drives aggressive behavior. When you're not worried about being attacked, you can focus on other things: play, exploration, social bonding. The implications of his words sent ripples of excitement through the observation areas. If safety and predictability could transform natural enemies into cooperative communities, what did that mean for galactic civilization? Chancellor Drack's projection flickered as he received communications from the council chambers. When it stabilized, his expression had changed dramatically. Dr. Reed, the Galactic Council has reached a decision. We formally withdraw our threat assessment of humanity and extend an invitation for your species to join the galactic community as full partners. Sam raised an eyebrow. Just like that? A few days ago, you were ready to eliminate us as a plague on the galaxy. A few days ago, we believed that strength meant the capacity for destruction. The Chancellor replied, You have shown us a different kind of strength, the capacity for creation, for harmony, for turning enemies into allies through patience and understanding. There's one condition, Sam said, his tone remaining friendly but gaining a note of firm resolve. Earth joins as an equal partner, not a junior member or probationary species. And I want guarantees that our conservation efforts and environmental protection programs will be supported and expanded throughout the galaxy. The Chancellor's skin shifted to surprised silver. You're in a position to make demands? Sam gestured to the peaceful community surrounding them. I'm in a position to offer something you've never seen before. A model for interspecies cooperation that doesn't depend on dominance hierarchies or territorial competition. But it only works if it's built on mutual respect and shared benefits. Dr. Omenthi's projection moved closer. Dr. Reed, would you be willing to work with our xenobiology teams? We could establish research stations, create more environments like this one. Think of what we could learn about interspecies communication and cooperation. I'd be honored, Sam replied. But not as an experimental subject, as a colleague and partner in developing better ways for different species to coexist. Chancellor Drack nodded slowly. Very well. I hereby extend an offer for you to serve as the first human galactic environmental harmonization specialist. With full diplomatic status and unlimited resources for interspecies cooperation research. Sam looked around at his adopted family, the lions who had accepted him as pride member, the hunters who had chosen cooperation over conflict, the dozens of other species who had learned to live together in unprecedented harmony. I accept, but I have one more request. This dome shouldn't be a testing facility anymore. Make it a learning center where young beings from all species can come to understand that cooperation is always possible. The first interspecies harmony preserve, Dr. Omenthi breathed. A place where the next generation can learn to see beyond traditional boundaries. Exactly, Sam said, smiling as Leo brought him a crystal fragment as a gift. After all, the most important lessons are often learned through play. As the artificial sun set on the dome, painting the crystal formations in rainbow hues, Sam settled in for another peaceful night surrounded by friends who had once been considered the galaxy's most dangerous predators. Above them, alien children pressed their faces to observation windows, watching in wonder as their greatest fears transformed into their greatest hopes for the future. The age of galactic harmony had begun, with a simple truth, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose not to fight.